crazy people are ruining politics. Just across the board, whether we're talking in Colorado or we're talking nationally, the extremism on both sides seems to be overtaking the party. It has gotten to the point where, we'll go out, we'll do something, and somebody will say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I want to lie and tell people anything other than politics because it has become a shameful thing, right? Which is a terrible place for politics to be.
So have both parties gotten, a little too extreme? We're going to find out. But first, subscribe and like our channel. Click on that little bell icon for notifications. And please check out the Devil's Advocate podcast on your favorite platform. Kelly Maher from Restoring Standards. How long have we been drinking, buddies?
We've got to be north of 20 years at this point, right?
Then how come you're still hot and I look like this?
That's a great question. It's something I'm sure you ask yourself in the mirror every
Remember,
morning.
the more you drink, the better I look.
I mean, I can't consume that much alcohol because I would be dead. Sorry.
It'd be poison.
Yeah, that would be like getting my stomach pumped level. No offense.
It's still worth it, though.
Is it?
It is, really. It's definitely worth it.
Whatever you're into, John.
All right, let's get back to politics as if we ever started. Both extremes in Colorado are off their rails. And we've seen weird people on every side. We've always seen crazies, but the crazies have never been in charge. They've been out there.
Right.
Now the crazies are in charge.
Yeah.
The crazies, although Dave Williams has just been ousted, are in charge of the party, although it doesn't matter because nobody's electing any Republicans anyway. But the crazies on the other side are in charge of the legislature. I've been here nearly all my life. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, look, so about a little less than a year ago, several friends and I got together, and friends on the left, friends on the right. And I think one of the unifying things that we have come to is this idea that crazy people are ruining politics. Just across the board, whether we're talking in Colorado or we're talking nationally, it has gotten to the point where, we'll go out, we'll do something, and somebody will say, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I want to lie and tell people anything other than politics because it has become a shameful thing, right? Which is a terrible place for politics to be.
And for those who don't know,
right,
you have been a great political consultant, activist. You're the person you call, "Hey, we're running a campaign on this. Can you help us out?" You're that chick.
Well, first off, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. You called me great, so I'm going to
take it.
Yeah, I will.
The more you drink, the more I compliment you as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll get on that.
We'll get on that.
But
just so people know, this has been your profession.
Yes.
For a couple of decades.
Right.
And you're saying that the extremes are just...
They're ruining it for everybody, right?
How do you mean? Put some meat on that for me.
Well, I think that on the right, we have people who seem to be just completely out of touch with reality, who rely almost entirely on ad hominems, who profit off of loss. For instance, I think that's one of the big criticisms I have about Dave Williams is that he has been a very bad faith chairman who used state party resources for his own congressional means and then has basically, in my mind, embezzled money from the party. So I filed a Federal Elections Commission complaint against him. On the left, I'm very concerned, and many of my friends on the left are very concerned about kind of this real brush fire of anti-Semitism that is happening. It seems really, really concerning for them and frankly, for the entire country. The extremism on both sides seems to be overtaking the party. And it's not just extremism. I think that it's fascinating because there are people all along the political spectrum, right? People think of politics as a spectrum, right? You have the left and you have the right, and there's differences in policy. But one of the things that we're trying to figure out with Restoring Standards is how to add kind of you like economics and x-axis to it, the good faith versus bad faith spectrum. Because I think that there are people all along the political spectrum on the left and the right that are of good faith, whom I may disagree with on policy, that I would prefer to have somebody on the left, frankly, who is of good faith, than many of the people I've seen on the right who are operating in bad faith.
Let's add some texture to that.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to become friends with Dick Lamb.
Oh.
And Dick Lamb, former governor of Colorado, is one of the greatest free thinkers I've ever met. Wrong most all the time,
right.
And he and I would have great arguments about it, but he had this ability, unlike most politicians, unlike very few, where he would constantly check his own premise.
Yes.
He would always go, wait a minute, is this the right policy? Am I doing the right thing? And over time, he would change his mind on things.
Yeah.
I think of John Andrews, who founded the Independence Institute, who was such a Boy Scout that if he had waited 1 week to go into the legislature, he was filling, I think it was Kaufman's seat in the state Senate, he would be able to run for another entire term with our term limits. But he was like, no, I was appointed to do a job. I'm going to get right. I mean,
that sounds like John.
That is.
Yeah.
Which is.
Yeah. Bob Schaefer.
Bob Schaefer,
right?
Another. Right.
He signed his pledge in order to do his terms, and he was pressured to run again and declined because he signed the term limit pledge for Congress.
And all of these people we just mentioned. Are remarkably passionate about their political philosophy.
Yes.
And never compromise on their political philosophy. They might compromise on a bill, but they know where the goalpost is.
Oh, and I mean, there's so many other people on the left, right? Like, I am a conservative. I am unabashedly conservative. I'm a Republican.
No, you're not. I saw you're a rhino.
Well, according to Dave Williams, I'm a rhino, but my guns have guns, and I oppose basically anything that the government wants to do. But I think back, I got the opportunity to tell former Governor Roy Romer how much he changed my life because he assigned the charter school bill. And I was one of the first people in Colorado to graduate high school from a charter school. That's going to date me quite a bit. But, as people were moving up in charter schools, I got to graduate high school from a charter school in Colorado because Roy Romer put a lot of political capital on the line. I think of some of the things that I got to do when I worked for Congressman Beaupre, when he would partner with Mark Udall. I mean, these were statesmen of good faith. Even with whom we disagree, they are interesting thinkers who knew why they believed what they believed.
I think that a lot of folks on the left are just as principled. They are just communists.
They're just wrong.
They're
right.
The Democrats in Colorado, we've had Democratic governors, we've had Democratic legislators, but over my lifespan, they've usually been pro-capitalist. They haven't been wildly redistributionist. They might have been pro-union, but in the last decade, the amount of hardcore socialists who say they're socialists.
Yeah, the DSA is on the rise in Colorado by a lot.
And by the way,
that should concern normal Democrats.
In the same way, I remember it was the Republicans who were always called the anti-Semites. Wait, who's standing up for Israel and Jews now? It's not the Democrats. It's becoming very hateful. And so I'm seeing on the right, I see the Dave Williams self-serving insulters. They just insult. And
they profit through loss. That's another really fascinating thing.
And they're detached from reality.
Yes.
You've talked to a lot of these people. I get the callers on the radio show. You get the whole, no, Trump won Colorado. I believe Trump won Pennsylvania. All right, I'll give him that. Trump didn't win Colorado.
No.
It didn't happen. Or Trump will win Colorado. No, it's not going to happen. And we just need to be more of this, and then we'll win more. That is detached from political reality.
Right.
And so not only do I see people who are questionably ethically, I just also see people who are, dumb.
See, and this is a really fascinating thing because I think you and I have been doing this well, you've been doing it longer than me because you're so old.
Fair
But
point.
yeah, I'm going to see how many times I
Yeah,
can
say
slip
the
that in
old.
there, right? You're very old. But we have been, as you led the thing, we've been drinking buddies for 20 years, right? So we have watched the arc of Colorado politics in a way that younger people or those who have not been as in it as we are, we have a different perspective watching that arc. And I think a lot of it is social media, right? A lot of it is that we can become so cloistered that we are not exposed to other people and other ideas. I think that many people have lost intellectual curiosity about how things work because they consume information in a different way. That's why I think this show is so important because you really challenge and dig into some of these policy questions. But additionally, there has become this kind of, I remember Bob Beaupre ran for governor and he had a pollster. Do you remember Dave Sackett?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sackett came in and told Congressman Beaupre that there was this anger. There's this anger underneath everything. And Bob, being Bob, said, well, what can we do about it? What can we do to alleviate this anger? And Sackett said to him, I don't know. And I haven't said that since Nixon. And there is this anger that is underlying all of politics right now.
A lot of it, let me
Yeah.
go out on a limb and say,
Yeah.
the left was the first to really perfect the art of of personality, of destroying people's characters, that this is personal destruction we're going after. And it made perfect sense. Great Saul Alinsky, triangulate and destroy your opponents one at a time. And so when you got in their crosshairs, they would cancel you. They would Don Imus you. They would get you off the air. They knew how to attack people. They tried to get me off the air. They tried to get Mike Rosen off the air. I mean, just crazy stuff.
I mean, well,
me, I deserve
getting
to be
you
off.
off the air is probably
Yeah,
appropriate. Let's be honest.
But what it was personal. It wasn't, hey, we disagree with these guys. Let's tangle in the court of public opinion. Let's have a fight over policy. They decided to win. And in order to win, they started destroying people. I mean, right to the point, when Clinton got into office and they said, $100 in a trailer park, that's where you get these folks. And they would destroy people's lives.
Gosh. Remember, I'm old enough to remember when Mitt Romney was like the biggest threat to democracy, remember? now he's like the champion of the, I mean, look, it's still happening, right? We're seeing, if you look at what's the attack on J.D. Vance right now, is that he's weird, right?
Yeah, it is weird.
Okay. Yeah. But it is this fascinating landscape that we're in that I think people are sick of it. People are really sick of it.
My only point was, the left, I think, perfected it, and the right can't do it as well. Who the hell has the right been able to cancel?
I don't know if that's necessarily the measure though, right? Like I think if we are looking at this and we go back to the Sackett question, where is this anger coming from? People on the right, Republicans, conservatives, I think are very, very deeply, deeply frustrated. They feel beat up. They feel beat down. And so they're looking for fighters, right? Like they want, what happens when you feel bullied? You want your own bigger bully.
All right.
And
part of it is, what is
this,
it you want? What is it you want? I want government to get out of my life. I want government to stop telling me what I can't do.
Right.
I want government to stop stealing my money. These are things. And you know what? When government says, no, you can't have that gun. No, you can't build your house like that. No, you have to send your kid to this school. No, you have to mask up. No, you have to social distance. No, you can't go into business. No, you can't pay that person what they agreed to pay. After a while, you're like, ugh.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
And I'm not too sure what the left is so angry about, but that's what I'm angry about.
They're extremely angry about.
They're just angry.
Well, but they're angry about us, and they're being fed fear the same way.
In Colorado, what in the world does a leftist have to be angry at a conservative for? We are useless.
If you are told from the time that you are small that the world is on fire, right? That the world is literally on fire, and that you are going to be dead every 5 years. It's like 10 years from now, right? Then you have this fear-based, this anger, this frustration, and then you see people on the streets, and you are an empathetic person. You see, like I am not.
You see oppression. You've been taught to see oppression everywhere.
I am not a leftist, but I think it's really important that you and I and people like us can step out of our own worldview and can look at the other side or look at other people to be able to attribute good faith to them. Like, Mark Udall's and like Roy Romer's and like Dick Lamb's, because if we keep sitting in this tribalism where our side equals good and their side equals bad, then we are also unable to own our own side's issues. We're unable to hold our own side accountable. I stood up at the beginning of this year and I filed a Federal Elections Commission complaint against the chairman of the Republican Party of Colorado because I was watching him, in my mind, basically embezzle money. He was self-dealing. He was using the state party for his own congressional race. I'm still watching him just lay waste to the party that I have spent 20 years dedicated to. And that is really, really hard to do in a situation where we are so tribalist that our side, elephant, red equals good, and their side, blue, donkey equals bad. And so one of the things I'm doing with Restoring Standards with friends on the left and the right is trying to figure out how to reconsider these tribes. That there are people in politics who I disagree with, but who use phrases like, but I could be wrong, right? Imagine a world where somebody has the self-awareness to believe that maybe about politics they could be wrong.
There's a book that I recommend to everyone. It's called The Three Languages of Politics. It's only about 100 pages.
Okay.
And the guy breaks us up, Arnold Kling breaks us up into three camps: libertarians, conservatives, progressives.
Okay.
And basically says we all have our own very different worldview and therefore different language. I see the world as a fight between coercion and liberty. No matter what I see, that's what I see.
Right.
Conservatives see a fight between civility and chaos. And that's why we can look at police and drug war and look very differently. Progressives see the battle between the oppressed and the oppressor. And if I try to convince a progressive of something using my worldview, I'm talking Greek and they can't speak it. And the same way around. I see a lot of that. But what I do miss, I don't want to say civility, but there was a process by which politicians and people who disagreed would fight. And it was a good fight.
Yeah.
There was much more of this. There was much more editorial letters. There was much more town hall meetings. There was much more, here's the process by which you and I argue. It's called argumentation. And that's gone. Now it's I'm going to cancel you and you're bad. Just go to my Twitter feed. I mean, it's just,
Mine too.
Yeah, it's just vomiting hatred constantly.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, there used to be somebody who would say, you're wrong and here's why. I love that. And that's gone. So how are you going to get from here
to there
to a place where, and I want to see if I've got this part right.
Right.
You're not suggesting that people have to moderate their political goals or their political philosophies,
right?
Are you?
No, not at all. I think that everyone should stand in exactly where they believe, and they should advocate for that to the best of their ability. I think, though, that we have gotten to a place where people have confused good argumentation with being an asshole. And I really think that we can start to deal with that by pushing those people back out. And then, because you and I tend towards the conservative libertarian views, really looking at the incentive structures for people of character, how they get involved, right? So there are a lot of groups out there right now that are looking at different rules of the game, right? They're looking at different voting structures. They're looking at different ways that we can be nominating candidates. They're looking at how many people should we have involved in this? How many people should we have involved in that? How do all of these structures work? And I would posit that in addition to that, we must look not just at the rules of the game, but at the quality of the players. Because if you have the best set of rules with all of the incentive structures that you want, right? And I'm sure you've debated all the different voting methods and all of the, like, there is tons of stuff out there. And your mileage may vary on which, if any, you think is going to be the silver bullet to fix politics. But any rule structure implemented by people of bad faith will become bastardized.
You have to win.
Yep.
Let me throw this out.
Yeah.
That's so sweet, Kelly.
Yeah.
You're just adorable, I tell
know.
you. Everybody be nice to each other.
That's me. Let me tell you.
Politics.
When people think Kelly, what they think is everybody be nice to each other. Let me tell you.
But you have to win.
Yeah.
And guess what works? Going low works. It's not that I'm defeating this guy because his policies are wrong. I'm going to find something and make up something. You've seen it time and time again the last week of a primary, and then lies pop out, and off they go. And it works.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the way that you characterize this, because it depends on how you define low, right? I don't think, and I have this debate all the time because people are like, oh, politics is so mean. Politics is so ugly. Negative campaigning is so bad. I don't think that in fact is the problem, right? Because one of the things we did, so there's Restoring Standards, which is the education arm, the research arm. We're trying to put objective standards around these ideas of good faith and bad faith, trying to figure out how to create the incentive structures to have people of good faith stay engaged, and how to take our people of bad faith and show them the door on politics. But on the other side of that, right, there's the Restoring Standards PAC. And I think a person would look at the things that Restoring Standards PAC put out and would characterize them as negative campaigning. For instance, against Dave Williams in the 5th Congressional District. Because in my mind, I know you endorsed Jeff Crank. Jeff Crank is a longtime friend of mine.
Mine too.
And the juxtaposition of Dave Williams and Jeff Crank was, to me, very stark. Not just like, look, they're both very far right people. So there were some people in Colorado who said, oh, Jeff Crank is the moderate. Jeff Crank is no moderate, right? I've known him as long as I've known you. He is a very fastidiously, consistently conservative person. He's a Christian. He will vote along those lines.
I love that. He's too far right because he worked for AFP, Americans for Prosperity. He's a right nutbag. He's a moderate left squish.
Yeah, it was bizarre,
yeah.
right? But on the good faith, bad faith, I would argue their votes would have been similar, right? Similarly far right. And yet on the good faith, bad faith spectrum, there's no question. Jeff Crank is a deeply good man, and Dave Williams has not been a deeply good person in any way that he has acted. As chairman of the party, and before that, I think that he has been one of the biggest net detriments to the Republican Party in Colorado in recent memory. And so I filed an FEC complaint against him. I dropped a bunch of phone calls against him. We ran radio ads against him. We ran mail against him. And it all would have been like negative campaigning, but it was all true. He definitely took the money from state party. He definitely sent out mail from state party. He definitely called himself an America First candidate while his previous job was importing plastic stuff from China, right? Like he definitely did those things. They were true things that we put out. And A contrast.
Let me
Sorry,
just-
I have strong opinions.
And you were among the first to stand up and say, I'm going to stop them. You put this together.
Heck yeah.
And people then gathered behind and, victory has 1,000 mothers. And so,
that's fine.
But you were the one that said, we need to do this. You were the one to pick up the phone and start fundraising. And it's why Jeff Crank's going to be a congressman. And that's terrific. What about on the other side of the fence? What about their crazy, out of control, unethical people?
Yeah, actually,
give me a couple of them.
If you look at, for instance, Elizabeth Epps, right? She was ousted. I will say the Restoring Standards PAC played on both the left and the right, and I think that the left in Colorado right now is doing a better job of kind of
self-policing.
Yeah, well, and also recognizing they've watched us get all the way down this road, and they're like, "Ooh, this is not the road that we want to be going down." And
I don't know if I agree with you.
Okay.
Even though Hernandez and Epps lost in their primaries because they're wingbat crazy communists. I'm sorry, democratic socialists. But
DSA did not do well on primary night in Colorado.
But still, this legislature and the one coming up is going to be hardcore leftists. And I don't see the Republicans making any substantial gains. Maybe they will. I hope they do. But there's still going to be a huge imbalance. One of my biggest frustrations, particularly with the press, is that they report on Republicans. Why are you reporting on Republicans? They squabble like toddlers, but they have no power. There's nothing there. You're reporting on something that is insignificant and has no political leverage. Whereas inside the Democratic circles, there's a civil war going on between progressives and socialists, and they're beating each other up. Those are the people in power. That deserves attention. But Dave Williams does all this stupid stuff and has meeting under bridges like trolls. And how can you not cover that? And the press, being the press, they want to shine a light on Republican dysfunction, not leftist dysfunction.
Yes. I think you and I have had plenty of conversations over the years about asymmetrical media coverage, and I think there are a lot of people who are doing that. And I think it's important work, right? I think that the Fourth Estate and trust in, and this, by the way, I think in part has led to this situation, which is distrust in institutions across the board, across the state and across the country, has created a situation where we desperately need what some of my girlfriends and I call a reliable narrator, right? Somebody who can come in and try to have an objective view of that. However, again, right, I think that Republicans wouldn't have this amount of coverage if we didn't have Dave Williams as the chairman of the party, because ultimately what media is about is clicks. It's about access. It's about eyeballs. It's about ears. It's about attention, right? And so people hating on Republicans being crazy gets attention because we have allowed a situation where Republicans are being crazy, and we need to self-police. And also, I think from just an overarching political standpoint, increase the character of the people involved.
So what is the end goal? When do you say restoring standards, mission accomplished?
Mission accomplished.
You're going to go onto the aircraft carrier?
Stand on the aircraft carrier in front of my banner?
Yeah. How do you know that you've hit what you've wanted to hit? And I understand the C4 and the PAC, the idea is to educate people and also to take out the crazies on both sides.
Yeah. I
don't think anyone's done this. And so you've got Democrats and Republicans who understand the dangers of what's going on playing in this. And it's really unique in Colorado politics. When do you go, that's
the thing?
That we're taking that hill, and when we get to the top, what's actually different?
That's such a good question. I think obviously it's going to be an incremental shift, right? Like it has to be. we got here incrementally. We got here slowly. We degraded to this level over the last 20 plus, maybe even more years, depending on who you ask. And so I think the first step is creating some kind of objective standard around which we can say, these are the attributes of somebody of good faith, and these are the attributes of somebody of bad faith. And, it's like, oh, you're going to like this one. It's like porn, right?
Oh, finally, we're talking about something.
I know, but it's about
it's in the eyes of the beholder,
right? Or I don't know it, but I know it when I see it, right? Or the thought of that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. What does that look like, and how do we start to put some objective standards around that question of who's being good, who's being bad, and then creating the kind of incentive structures for good faith people to be involved.
We just need to make it so that people who are ethical have a good shot of winning. And I think this primary season and what just happened with the Republican Central Committee are examples of just that.
Yeah.
When you got rid of Hernandez, got rid of Epps, and the Central Committee, these are the people who elected Dave Williams. When 80% of them go, you're gone. Or was it 88%? I forget, but it was overwhelming.
It was overwhelming.
It was overwhelming. The exact same people who saw it said, no, this is too crazy. You're hurting what we want to get done.
Right.
It's the beginning of that policing.
Right.
And parties are always going to have extremes. There's also something outside of candidates, though. It's the machinery. And I'll get to the Twitter hate that we get. Those are paid trolls. Those are paid trolls from the left. We can name them, who they are. And they are paid to sit there and insult people and insult people and insult people until finally that person barks back something. And then, the Colorado Times Recorder, part of their infrastructure, goes, oh, look, he's a racist, boom. And they have it. And so it's good to get rid of the extremes in the candidates. But what about the extremes in the machinery of politics, at which the left is much more nasty and hurtful than the right could ever be?
Well, I think because
the right isn't competent enough to do it as well as the left.
Well, back to your earlier question, right, which is when can you stand on the aircraft carrier in front of a mission accomplished banner? Is the left does it and the right does it because it works, right? I don't put photos of my children. I have 2 children. I do not put them up on the internet because I'm me and because people think that they should die or people give them all kinds. I know that you have been in similar situations to me, and some of them are incredibly cruel, and some of them cut to the quick. And I've gotten it, frankly, on the left and the right. And I've gotten it especially on the right since I decided to stand up and say, these people, I believe in math. I believe in politics by math, right? And one of the things that you learn in elementary school is what happens when you add a negative number. And I believe that Dave Williams is the consummate negative number. He's like negative a gajillion, right? And so when I stood up and said, I think this is bad for us, it's like a cancer, and I'm just going to go ahead and it's time for some chemotherapy, right?
One of the great things about Independence Institute is we're not an outfit for the Republican Party.
Right.
And so when we come out and say, this is a bad idea, this is a bad policy, it's well reasoned. And we have lost lots of friends. We have lost lots of donors because we'll say, this initiative is a bad initiative, well-intentioned, but it will blow up and we should not pass it. At which point, somehow, we're the problem. It is kill the messenger because, we stand up and we don't work for a team. We work for liberty. And so Republicans love us when they're in the minority, and they despise us when they're in the majority and start acting like politicians and doing the wrong thing. And the liberty we have, the real pleasure we have by being an institution that is on its own and stands on its own and not paid for by the machinery is we get to do that. And it seems to me that restoring standards is kind of the same thing.
I hope so. I'm trying to authentically work with friends on the left who are really concerned about their trajectory, about the trajectory of their party. And
what are they concerned about? They have all power in this state.
Yeah, but it is like the dog who caught the car, right? It is the I also like driving cars and being able to pay for gas and feel like, I mean, look, extreme leftist policies or extreme rightist policies both lead down a really, really, really tough road. Now, you and I tend to be more extreme, at least economically right, but ultimately.
And by the way, going down the economic hardcore road
right,
brings prosperity.
I know, I love it so much, but you and I see that in a way that most people don't. And I do, in some cases, asterisk, see a role for government, asterisk, sometimes asterisk, right? Like there is a reason for,
but the question was, the people you're partnering on
right,
the left,
yeah,
they own a supermajority in the legislature. Yeah. They own the governor's
and
office.
They're scared of their own guys.
They own the courts.
Yeah.
They own most cities.
Yep.
They own most counties. This is their state. It is their playground. Why in the world would they partner with you to take out their extremes?
But the same reason that you and I had discomfort when we had absolutely everything, top to bottom, side to side, right? Like we could have,
for the 20 minutes that happened.
I know, it was great. It was a great 20 minutes, but it genuinely wasn't, because we saw what was coming down the pike, and they do too, right? Like end stage communism is bad for people who like feeding their children. And I loved the book you brought up. One of my lefty friends, I don't know if he would want me to name check him here, but
name check him.
Ian Silveri.
Okay.
He had me read a book. He and I used to, by the way, be opposite each other
on TV.
On Channel 9, and that's how we became friends, because he is such an interesting thinker, and I love talking to him about why he believes what he believes, because he is exceptionally smart. And he had me read a book that by a guy named Tim Urban, and it was called "What's Our Problem? A Self-Help Guide for Societies." And it really helped me to put some ideas around how we start to create concrete good faith, bad faith tribes, and how we start to figure out how to incentivize good faith to win and usher our bad faith friends out the door.
When did you turn squishy?
I did not turn squishy.
I remember when you were tough as nails, and now
guns have guns. My guns have guns.
Now you're rainbows and unicorns. What happened to you, man?
I believe that we can get to a better outcome with bare knuckles, right? I really do. This is going to boomerang back on all of us political types, and it is time to get crazy people out of politics.
Amen to that. People want to know more, learn more. Where do they go?
RestoringStandards.com. Restoring Standards PAC is the organization that does the campaign side of it, but RestoringStandards.com.
And if somebody wants to thank you for helping Dave Williams not become a congressman, they could send you a check, I'm assuming.
I would love that.
And what would you do with that check?
Right now, it depends on whether it's C4 or PAC.
Right.
If it's a C4 check, I am working with friends on the left and the right to try to create incentive structures for people of good faith to become more involved in politics. Because the thing is, like, and I would argue we actually did fairly well in our primary in Colorado on both sides of the aisle. on the left and the
Yep.
right for good faith politicians winning, if that continues to happen, then people of good faith will be like, oh, there's a path for me. Normal people will be like, maybe I could win.
Is it your hope that you spend equal amounts on right and left? So if you're taking out the extremes, are you only going to be working on Republicans and only 10% on Democrats, or somebody gives you a check, will you be going after both?
I think it's all along the spectrum. I think that there are, again, people of good faith and bad faith all along the political spectrum. So
that wasn't an answer.
It wasn't, because I don't want to lock in, because I think it really depends. If there is an existential threat like Dave Williams, again, I think that gets disproportionate attention, because I think that he has done more to harm Republicans, but people of good faith in Colorado, I would say Dave Williams and his little plan to endorse in primaries and only of his friends and make all of the
Very last question.
Yeah.
What's Dave's next job?
I mean, I've heard that a lot of the things that has happened with the party has now been sent to law enforcement. So, maybe he'll end up in laundry.
Look at that smile. All right. Thank you, Kelly. RestoringStandards.com.
RestoringStandards.com.
There you go. Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.